Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Young Ralph, and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan.
On episode 205, it's cancellation week. What do I mean by that? Well, a bunch of stuff was cancelled, and also things flopped, which is essentially like a cancellation, but cancellation at the box office, essentially. I don't know, I'm kind of stretching that one there. But also, the movie that we're talking about this week was also cancelled by Trump, or was trying to be cancelled by Trump, and that's the movie we're going to be covering today. So yeah, stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. Then I'm almost done with the Zurich Film Festival. I got some interviews coming up on the channel, a recap of roughly 60 plus 65 movies. That's an overlap of the stuff that I didn't get to cover from Gun Yet and Venice and all of that, lots of stuff, but also a bunch of brief thoughts on Blitz, A Real Pain, We Live in Time, Conclave, The End, and a couple more that's coming up later in the show. And Lachlan has some new BluRays to show us, and we're gonna talk about Tarkovsky some more.
So what was that movie I was talking about? Oh, well, it's just a small film about Donald J. Trump and his upcoming career in the late 70s, early 80s in New York, becoming the gigantic conglomerate billionaire playboy, whatever the fuck you want to call his lifestyle. He's essentially the Tony Stark of the real world. It's The Apprentice. Ewan saw it a while ago. I just caught up on it because it just has basically released worldwide. So that's what we're going to talk about this episode.
Let's get into it. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there.
Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
Welcome back, Lachlan. A bit of a recap that we need to do before I guess we jump back into this week's news and all the stuff that we watched. We don't really see each other that much or talk to each other that much throughout the week when we're at festivals. We're almost done. Kevin is at Ghent now, and having what he reported back is like a bit harder to get into some screenings. He has to pay for some. For the older journalists, it's a bit easier to get into stuff, is what he's been noticing. So that's a bit disappointing to see for the future of like film journalism. But other than that, other than me being a bit tired, I'm done with all of my interviews. I'm ready to get back into the everything, and I feel like we're on the same wavelength here that. Maybe you on another level than I am, but there's some movies that we want to catch up with that we can't wait to see.
A ton. So I want to catch up on. I feel like I haven't seen that many this year compared to the likes of yourself and Kev. But yeah, it will eventually come. I have to wait a little bit longer for some of them. But some of them are coming out a lot quicker than I thought they were, and sometimes I get it a little bit sooner than the rest of the world. Like next week with
Memoir of a Snail.
That's what you get for having an Australian director. You get to have it a little bit earlier sometimes. I think we had Furiosa a week earlier as well.
Right,
but
yeah.
I could just be making that up because I think George Miller is a sick bloke and probably likes to be nice to his fellow Australians and give us stuff a little bit early when we usually get things late. But yeah, there's just a ton of stuff I want to catch up on, dude. Tons of stuff.
Yeah, there's some animated films, right, that you're looking forward to.
I've heard
good buzz.
Plenty of great things about The Wild Robot and Transformers 1. Like, not like, Toy Story Revolutionary or as like crazy and big as Frozen 2 or even Frozen 1 or Moana, but I've heard some really positive things for the films that I think like a lot of people gave The Wild Robot some flack for its trailers. Just an Iron Giant ripoff,
including me,
of some kind. And I think the same kind of went for Transformers 1 with the voice cast, but I've heard that it's a decent amount of fun, and I feel like that's something that's missing, especially after I've been watching a lot of like serious movies, I guess, recently, so I wouldn't mind a little bit of fun stuff. I guess The Apprentice maybe be the exception, because The Apprentice was a decent amount of fun, but we'll get into that. Don't worry.
Yeah, but let's have a look at I guess all the news that came out this week and go over them in a quick fashion. It's what we call quick news here. First up, That 90s Show and Chaos have both been cancelled after 1 and 2 seasons respectively.
Joker 2 has a historic flop at the box office. On a $190 million budget. It has made $37 million domestically, which makes it even worse than Morbius.
Yeah, you can't save that. Not even morbing out. We'll save it. Then Princess Diaries 3 is officially moving forward with Adele Lim set to direct and Anna Hathaway returning.
James Hawes of Slow Horses and Black Mirror fame is set to direct the first 2 episodes of Lanterns, the DC Studios TV shows of Green Lanterns. Aaron Pierre is Jon Stewart and Kyle Chandler is Hal Jordan in the new HBO original series.
Then Rachel McAdams is in talks to star in Sam Raimi's new horror film Send Helped, that is described as a horror version of Castaway mixed with Misery.
Ewan McGregor reveals that they are currently exploring ideas for Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 at Disney. He adds that he would like to wear the Clone Wars armor and have more flashbacks with Hayden Christensen.
An Alien Isolation sequel game is in the works.
Will Smith is in talks to star in Fast and Loose, with Michael Bay also in talks to direct. The film follows a man who wakes up with no memories but soon learns that he's been living 2 lives. One as a crime kingpin and the other as a undercover CIA agent.
Okay. Then there's a first look for Over the Garden Walls animated short that is created by Aardman to celebrate the show's 10th anniversary.
Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried have been cast in The Housemaid with Paul Feig set to direct. The film follows a young woman who becomes a housemaid for a wealthy couple, but soon learns that the family's secrets are far more dangerous than her own. Ooh.
Christopher Nolan's next movie will release on July 17th, 2026, and Matt Damon is in talks to star, and Universal will distribute the film, including in IMAX. Filming begins in early 2026. Now, that is a ambitious timeline there. I hope they can get it done by then, but don't rush it. Don't rush it.
Christopher Nolan has time on his side. A24 has acquired the rights to release Pillion, starring Henry Melling and Alexander Skarsgård. Described as a, quote, kinky queer romance, the film follows a man who becomes a 24/7 submissive for a handsome leader of a motorbike club.
Yeah, Henry Melling has been choosing interesting roles, and I'm all for it. Then Velma has been officially cancelled after 2 seasons. I think it already was cancelled publicly after season 1, though.
A Big Bang Theory spin-off is in the works. Brian Posen, Lauren Lumpkus, and Kevin Sussman will reprise their roles.
And then Henry Cavill has been cast in a live-action Voltron movie.
Kyle Chandler has been cast in Joe Carnahan's Rip alongside Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. The film follows a group of Miami cops who discover millions in cash in a derelict stash house.
Then we got new trailers for Enora, Piece by Piece, Conclave, and Heretic, and first full-on trailers for The Order, Armor, A Complete Unknown, and The Seed of the Sacred Fig. But that's it for quick news, Lachlan. Anything that stands out to you? Obviously, the Joker opening debut domestic weekend of 37 million under Mobius gross is notable, and the audience reception of like the lowest rated what is it called, like the
comic book movie of like
response
ever.
survey that they get when
it's like the worst, it's like the worst audience scores of a comic book movie ever.
Yeah, especially of its caliber. I think there's probably some bad ones, but then people go in with the expectation of it being bad.
Yeah,
to me it's a bit perplexing. I had a couple of conversations with other people in Zurich this week about it, and just because to me it was always clear that this was what he was going for, maybe not to the extent of alienating the first one's audience, or maybe the ones who championed it for what he now considers to be the wrong reasons, like of inceldom and maybe like glorifying the acts of Arthur, and really just breaking that down, how the media received it. I think it is like, obviously you didn't like it at all. I didn't like it either. I didn't hate it though. I thought like it was fine. It had like, at least technically some good things about it. And to me, like it feels like a bit of an overreaction, but I don't know why people, like the general public, is also like hating it so much.
I think
it's not like a loud minority.
There's a
right?
mixture of again, I think you say that there's not a lot of problems with it technically, and I do agree. I think from a technical standpoint, it probably has a lot of strong elements to
Maybe
it.
visually, I should say visually.
Just take a sequel of some kind, right? Where you've got a character who starts back at square one again. And I think that's probably what it's going to be for the general public, is that they thought they were getting a Joker sequel. And at least from all the trailers, you get a lot more Joker in the trailers than you actually do in this film. So to have this movie battle it out with whether Arthur Fleck was the Joker or not, and that's what this film explores, then yep, sure.
Yeah. That's
what they decided to go with. But I personally don't think they went the best way at tackling that narrative. And I think that, there's all these rumors of Joaquin Phoenix kind of knowing the movie was a bit shit. And also there's the article that I saw where Todd Phillips spent the opening weekend isolated at his like ranch or whatever, so he didn't have any. Yeah. There's that as well, and I feel like people also look at making a lot of excuses. DC Studios had notes, but Todd Phillips didn't even look at them. I felt like a lot of the backlash from this movie is from the fact that it restarts again, like the narrative of the Joker. You're exploring the Joker once more from start to finish again. And I guess, it feels like, well, what was the point of the first movie? This big opening reveal, and they decided to do a very, change the narrative, right hook here. Who am I thinking of? Who does Glass Onion? Rian Johnson. Right? Yeah. Subverting your expectations. And I feel like they decided to try to subvert the expectations of Joker 2, but they subverted them in the wrong way, and they presented a story that wasn't that fantastic. So, yeah. Yeah. It's also one of the worst comic book movies. I'm just going to say that there.
I mean, yeah, for what it's worth, I don't think, and then in its commentary, I think it rings so hollow as well, that, there's nothing that you can defend this movie by, other than, what I've seen under our stuff, which it's interesting. For Alien, for me, there was a lot of response to that. And then for Joker, obviously, I it's a meme that, people are going to talk about Joker, even if you're not talking to them. And it's funny how much that happened in our comment section as well, how long the paragraphs got.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Explaining and even putting us into, saying, commenting on stuff that we weren't even discussing. And I think where I saw that people liked it was that they have empathy for Arthur. And I think that was never really the question. If you have a lead character, you're going to see their perspective. If you agree with what they do or not, that's something different. And there's nuance in there, what they do. And by the way, nuance is my new favorite word. I say it all the time. I say it probably way too much. You could have a drinking thing to me saying nuance. And I could see why you gravitate towards that, but everything else, I think the music, some of the performances as well, it just is all a bit underwhelming. So I get why this movie isn't doing well. I don't get it to this extent. I think that is crazy to me. How the audience just has across the board accepted this is a shit film.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan, you are the Star Wars guy here, and I've seen Clone Wars. And as the in-house Star Wars guy, what Ewan has said here about wearing the Clone Wars armor, having more flashbacks with Hayden Christensen, does that excite you?
Maybe it's a bit of jealousy, the first season because he got to wear the Clone Wars armor and have a flashback in Ahsoka. So maybe there's a little bit of jealousy for what Hayden got to do in the other TV show. Look,
we Ewans are jealous, so that would
don't want them to, dude. I just want Disney to fuck right off with Star Wars and not ruin it anymore, or just give it to somebody else to deal with. Look, Ewan McGregor is very
Todd
passionate
Phillips
about this character. Oh, fuck off! No, that's the worst idea ever. Look, you can clearly see Ewan McGregor is very passionate about this character, and he clearly has a lot of fun with this role, and he feels like the character, it needs a little bit more closure. Maybe it needs a little bit more of a a last hurrah, because Obi-Wan, the narrative of that TV show had the potential to be absolutely fantastic. Not only from just like a cinematic standpoint, but from a character driven standpoint, because I feel like the relationship that you get in the prequels between Obi-Wan and Anakin is one of the best, and it's fleshed out in all of the animated stuff. And I feel like they had such a good opportunity to go there, but they just fucked it up. So I'm in a really weird boat at the moment because I want Star Wars to get better, but I feel like Star Wars isn't, at least in the live action standpoint. I feel like there's so much opportunity there. I feel like some of these characters we want more of, but they're introducing new characters and focusing on those, where they should be introducing new characters in a different space. Like, just give me a different space. I haven't played Star Wars Outlaws yet, which is that new Ubisoft game, but I've heard that there are returning characters that in the movies, but there's no like Jedi stuff, which intrigues me because it's a brand new character, and I feel like that would work really well in the TV show, like or a movie. Like, give us new characters without bringing back these legacy ones and changing a narrative or making these legacy character TV shows or spin-offs and then making it about someone else. And I felt that really annoying. I felt that was really, really annoying in Obi-Wan, where we focus a lot on the main antagonist whose character's not coming to me.
Yeah, to me neither, but I can...
The chick who, it's just not coming to me her name, because the character was just irritating to me, and should have been dead when she got stabbed. But oh well. But yeah, I'm a mixed bag about that. Chris Nolan really gonna pump out a movie?
That fast
in 2026? I mean, yeah, sure. He doesn't do any CG, so it doesn't do VFX work. It's all
sure.
camera,
he doesn't
right?
do any CG.
Yeah, it doesn't do any VFX work. And he shoots on film, so there's no color grading, obviously, because it's all shot on film.
I guess his turnaround is 3 years, right? He's done Tenet 2020, Oppenheimer 2023. This would be 2026.
So he spent the last like 6-8 months writing since Oppenheimer, or been working on it since the post-production of Oppenheimer. That's when you typically start pre-production of your next one, and then production to start early 2025. You say you shoot for 2-3 months depending on the scale of this film. Interesting to see Universal back in his boat.
Yeah,
I feel like Warner Brothers would want to have thrown $1 billion at this man.
I mean, they did, didn't they? They gave him money, and I thought that like Universal was with Oppenheimer, right? And Tenet was with Warner Brothers. Then they had the falling out, and even after like mending the bridge with stacks of dollar bills, he's going back to Universal for this next one.
And it intrigues me to obviously the behind the stuff shit doesn't really matter at the end of the day for what we do here, but it does intrigue me to see where his head is at with what studios he's going to work with. And it's obvious that like there must have been some really bad stuff that happened at Warner Brothers, that they couldn't just throw endless amounts of money at him to make his next film. Also, Matt Damon was definitely underrated in Oppenheimer. Like he was a star in every single little moment he was in. So I'm kind of keen to see him center stage in a Nolan movie.
And I think like if I look at let's consider the big distribution companies or production companies, like you got Disney and Fox, which overall I think they have a messy track record. Warner Brothers, let's not even go there.
No.
Then who else we got? We got Universal, and I think Universal is doing the best job overall. We also have Sony. And what other big one am I missing? Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney. And there's not that many anymore. They keep dropping. It's not like we've got to bring up Lionsgate here or anything. But Universal, I think, is doing the best job across the board when it comes to like one of these bigger ones. Other than like A24 creeping up, but they only do stateside distribution and production, but mainly distribution as well. It kind of makes sense that you go from the big ones who can offer you the budgets that a Nolan requires. It kind of makes sense to stick with Universal until they inevitably will fuck up big with something. But yeah, I think that's all the stuff we're going to discuss for news-wise. There wasn't like any big news other than the looming thing of Joker really underwhelming. But it just means that the Iron Giant, for example, I think on the daily trackings, it's starting to like do better than Joker. So for that movie, I think there's going to be a lot of love for a general audience. I think that's one of the reasons why I liked it a bit less, because it does kind of feels like it retreats the same beat for the sake of just giving you a nice feeling towards the end, where I felt like you could have taken like a better approach. But I think at one point maybe we'll dedicate a catch-up episode to maybe some animated films or some stuff that Lachlan you haven't seen yet, but be on the lookout for that towards the end of the year. Because we don't skip out on any movies here. I already discussed it, I guess, briefly in what we've been watching a couple of weeks ago, but we didn't get to go into detail about it, and I think it's one of the films that actually would deserve that. But we got a couple more films that come out throughout the year before the year closes, and in the last week of the year, we got A Complete Unknown with Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan that comes out on December 25th. We previously got a already really long teaser. I think that teaser was already almost 2 minutes long, which is that even a teaser anymore?
Trailer.
And now we get a full-on trailer with a lot of singing, a lot of montage, a lot of trailer things. And I actually, apart from, I don't know, I'm gonna need to warm up to Timmy in the voice. It's just something about it seems odd. But other than that, I think it looks like, I feel like they have a ceiling, all of these biopics of self-indulging in like someone reliving someone's life. But to me, this could be a pretty solid film. One of the better ones, but as far as the trailer goes, I think it's a pretty decent one.
Personally, I'm not a major Bob Dylan listener, fan.
We said we want Billy Joel. You know, we want the Billy Joel one.
I probably cannot name a Bob Dylan song. And
times are changing.
Yeah, if you asked me name a Bob Dylan song, I wouldn't have guessed that. Yes, I know the song.
Okay.
But I don't know his line of music.
Right.
I know he's very influential, and this is not me being like, I don't like his music, it's just not something that I listen to. And you know what? Maybe this will change when I watch this movie and Timothée Chalamet wins an Oscar for a performance that could be better than Rami Malek's performance, because didn't Rami Malek win the Oscar for that one?
He did, for lip syncing,
and for lip syncing. All right, cool, sick.
And I think Timothy can actually sing. And it sounds like him in the recordings in what we got to hear. So that's already a step into the right direction. I don't know, something about like him, how young he is, and the time period that I don't know how long it stays with him, how much it covers from his life. Ultimately, this is just a reminder to go listen to some of the songs as well, and he's got a couple of really good ones. But I would be lying if I said that I listen to like his stuff all the time.
Mark my words, Edward Norton, best supporting actor, calling it.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think some of these biopics do tend to pick up a bunch of performance nominations. So.
Calling it right now.
Didn't even Tom Hanks get one for Elvis? So like.
Yeah, and that was one of the worst performances of Tom Hanks' life. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I'm telling you, these things just get Oscar nominations. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And then something that you're more excited for definitely is The Order, the new film from Nitram director Justin Kurzel. Comes out December 6th. I've already had the pleasure to see it in Venice, and Kevin and I both gave it a 4 out of 5 rating. Need to flex on you here. Sorry, Lachlan, but it's a good crime thriller movie, and the trailer had a pace to itself that I think really gives you a feel of its most intense moments. Maybe it's not reflective of the whole film, but it is a tense film. I really liked it, and this is a good trailer all around. Only praise to give.
Fantastic trailer. I'm super keen. That's it.
That's pretty much it. I mean, we'll definitely check this one out. I don't know if it will have an Australian release, but hopefully sooner than later we'll get to chat about this one. Is Justin Kurzel?
He's not Australian.
He
is Australian.
Okay, he's Australian.
I would say
so the likelihood increases.
If it's coming out on December 6th in America, you can probably expect it around Boxing Day in Australia. So yeah. 2020. Maybe it's a New Year release. Now that I think of it, it could be one of those. A lot of movies released on New Year's Day in Australia, so it becomes a 2025 movie for me.
It's crazy, actually.
Yeah,
it's already so packed. I had a look at it.
Yeah, I reckon it's a Boxing Day release.
We're gonna talk about it definitely once we, I guess, chat about like the best films of 2024. Not that it's up there for me, but it's a really, really good film. And then speaking of good films, a one that I caught in gun. I'm sorry that I keep mentioning festivals that you didn't attend, Lachlan, but The Seed of the Sacred Fig from Rasamud Muluf, I think is his name. Maybe I pronounced it wrong or got it wrong there, but it's an Iranian film that was really long. And people are gonna feel that. I think the trailer itself shows you maybe an intensity and pace that a trailer you can't really cut that like slow. But the movie feels slow in certain moments, all in benefit of the story and the tension that it builds. So I don't know how successful it will be at the box office, but I think all around it's really worthwhile. That one's out in the States on November 27th, and I think it's got to be, right, the official submission for the Oscars this year. Yeah, no, it is for Germany, which is interesting because, like, obviously Iran wouldn't choose this film. It's a German co-production, so that's what they got in the running this year. And yeah, it's a really, really good one if you can see it and you have the patience to be in the theater for 3 hours. I think this one's pretty good. But like, did it get you interested? Like, yeah, 3 hours.
You definitely had me up until about you telling me it's 3 hours. Look, I've heard so many interesting things about this particular movie. The 3 hour thing really doesn't get me going, but yeah, look,
it's 167 minutes. It's like, that's 13 minutes shy of 3 hours.
I think because I've read up a lot about the behind the scenes being filmed in secret.
Yeah.
Mohammad Rasulov leaving or fleeing Iran. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff which gets me quite intrigued about this. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and in the meantime, while you're waiting for this, I think There Is No Evil. It's out digitally. That came out in 2020. Was another project that was filmed in secret. It's a collection of anthology stories, also filmed as short films, and through that they kind of flew under the radar of the censorship and was able to be released that way. And it's one of the lead ups why, like, he ultimately, once that came out and he was working on this, he was arrested before the gun premiere, and it wasn't really sure if he could even make it. So a lot of interesting, the reality reflecting the themes of the movie itself, that it's not just like in a vacuum that it's being told in. Through that, I think it's a really
frustrating that there is still censorship like this for movies. And like I don't want to get like it's a political conversation about why they get censored by particular governments, but you'd feel like we could have progressed far enough in a society that if we can make a movie about Donald Trump, we can make a movie about anything. So here we are having movies censored about, yes, conversations about, strict oppressive legal systems like in There Is No Evil, but Seed of a Sacred Fig has got some political drama in it, but also, isn't it also a family drama as well, Ewan? Mostly a family drama?
Yeah, no, the family drama is, I think, all of it is being caught up in, because the father in the family is a government official that is one of the people in charge of these arrests, and then like the younger people are more on the side. Obviously, his two daughters, and then the mother is caught in between. And there's a lot of like moments where unspoken stuff. There's just like the tension in the room of these different ideologies and what they represent. And like, to me, we talked about this in the recap for Venice a bunch, Kev and I, because there was a movie called The Witness, Shahed. There was also Iranian, and we just said that like each time an Iranian man opens his mouth in these movies, you're like, shut the fuck up. You're just spouting nonsense. Yeah, like telling it through female perspectives, I think is really effective, because it's like, you didn't want to get political, but what we see is like a lot of like diverging opinions when it comes to young people getting political. Is like the men are going towards the right in general and the women towards the left. And there's, I think, never been in recorded history a bigger disparity between these two, like the genders really being like this on the opposition of each other. And that, to me, that is just really concerning as a whole for like also our Western society, because we are going more into the direction of like a right like push as well. So like movies like these are important for the sake of entertainment. They're tense, they're intense, they're like thrilling, but then they also have a lot to say. And they're like a time capsule for the future of what life was like. And for that, it's art and it's great. And The Seed of a Sacred Fig is worth putting on your watch list. But Lachlan, all right, we talked a bunch. Let's get to the stuff that we've been watching. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and leave a like. Maybe share it with someone who might be interested in our discussions about The Apprentice, or I guess upcoming talks about the Russian filmmaker Tarkovsky. You never know what you're gonna get.
Or how I say
podcast.
His name, Tarkovsky. No K. There's no K in it. Tarkovsky. Yeah, because I fucking butchered his name.
For you, all of the like letters are silent. You're like on a major French way. It's the fancy way of saying it. Let's get to what we've been watching. Like when I showed you this before, I got my I didn't know I owned this. I got like Stalker.
That's really cool.
DVD only though. No, it's a Blu-ray. It's a Blu-ray actually. Do you want to start off with Tarkovsky, or do you want to show me what you got recently?
I would like to show you the other movies that I got. Okay. The other thing as well is I really want to get some of these Tarkovsky movies on a physical medium of some kind. But I can't seem to find any that will work, at least in a decent resolution, or at least that's not DVD, with my players. So I feel like I've got to go down the rabbit hole of getting a region-free 4K DVD player as well. 4K, not 4K, but because 4Ks are technically region-free, but like Blu-ray player region-free, so I can finally start importing some Criterion collection discs, because oh man, that'd be so good. But before we continue, that rabbit hole, I should stop myself, because I have some movies that I got and I would love to share them with you. And I haven't unboxed any of them yet to like check them out on my movies. They're all very fresh. Let me show you. I got 3 that came out this year. Well, technically 4 that came out this year, but one is actually more of a remastering of a previous film. But let me start with the movies that I got from this year. All 4Ks. One of the Fall Guy in a really nice steelbook edition that has an extended cut. I'm super keen to rewatch this soon, because I thought this was a lot of fun. And I think it was enjoyable as all hell. And also it's the Gosling, and look at him in that fucking picture, dude. Like, Jesus, man.
Damn.
Also, yes, it was 50 Australian dollars to get this movie.
Wow.
That I'll get to keep until it rots.
4K in, these things stands for the amount of money that you ultimately going to spend.
Exactly, yeah. This one's a little bit cheaper, but also thought it was a lot of fun. And I also get these movies to support filmmakers if I can. And I thought that this would be a good choice to make. But a 4K of Monkey Man, Dev Patel's directorial debut, I thought did have some flaws, but ultimately I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think it would go really well next to my like Atomic Blonde and John Wick's and Nobody movies.
John Wick 3?
Monkey Man in there.
Yeah. With the I guess action wise, I just thought from the look of the cover there as well, color wise.
And then, as we all know, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. Longlegs finally came out in 4K. I don't like this cover, if I'm totally honest, but I liked the movie enough that I wanted it. Because part of this reason I get some of these is I actually think a lot of these covers look really cool, like these here. And I have got some of the ones I showed last week, like Brothers. I think some of them look sweet. I mean, this one is stupid. Like, this is stupid, but I get some of them just because I like the look of them. So then I got Long Legs. And then the movie, I haven't seen this one, but I actually wanted, I thought it was moving around here, but Stop Making Sense, the remaster of this. It's G, but you can't tell because the green screen is hiding the fact that it's G rated. But yeah, I'm keen to watch this. I love some of the music from Talking Heads. And then this is another one that I actually have not seen, but I've heard a lot of decent stuff about. And I realize I haven't seen a lot of Spanish movies. And my Letterboxd stats can kind of back that up. And this is a pretty big Spanish one, Thesis. Like a horror thriller that I'm very keen to see. It's a 4K, and I feel like one of my favorite things I used to do is just like go to like the DVD section and just go get a DVD that looked cool, and this looked cool, and I have some DVDs. Like, hang on, let me show you my favorite example of one. So my example is like this one. Blade of the Immortal. I love the look of this. Like, this is super simple and super cool. The 100th film made by Takashi Miike. Yes, this movie wasn't fantastic, but I saw this. I knew nothing about it. I grabbed it and I was like, this is cool. So yeah, there's a part of me that really loves just like finding something unique that I have no idea anything about, which is why I always look at like the world section, or I look at like just like through like the A to Z and just try to find something, and just I love physical media, dude. So good. And I watched an hour of Solaris. I'm making my way through Tarkovsky, I think, and I think I should have started with something a little bit shorter than his 2 like 3-hour movies. But
I think a lot of them are actually quite long.
Well,
I don't know if he has like a short movie.
It's like 110 minutes. The Mirror. It's 107 minutes. It's very short. But Solaris is super long. Hang on, I can do by longest first. Okay, well, I haven't even watched his longest movie, which is Andrei Rublev. So can't wait to watch 185 minutes of an expansive Russian drama that focuses on the life of a religious icon painter. Okay, cool, sick, no worries.
It's a big one.
I can only make my way back. Maybe I'll watch that one first before I watch The Sacrifice, just so I can get it out of the way. Anyway, I'm super into it. I think it's super pretty. I see a lot of people online comparing it to 2001, and I guess I can already start to see some similarities pop up. Yeah, a lot of the first part of this movie is just a lot of conversation. So that's why I've stopped at an hour, because he's basically on Solaris station, and I felt like that was a perfect stopping point, because before that, just before that was like a 10-minute montage of a guy just driving around in a car, and I was just fascinated by it. And I realized after I watched, I was like, fuck, okay, he's on a space station now, pause. I watched a little bit of it, but before that was just like an hour of just people talking, and I was like, fuck, oh, Jesus. So my brain was pretty muddled. And yeah, I'm super keen to finish it off. I may finish it tonight. We will see. I've still got another hour and like 45 minutes to go. But it could be a bit of a slow watch on this one, because I'm not in the same mind space that I was when I watched 2001, and I can definitely see that it's a very slow movie, Solaris, and a lot of reading. So,
but yeah, I think Solaris is bound. Like, I kind of want to rewatch it as well. I think it really comes together by the end there. And I like its themes, but while I was watching it, I don't think I had a great time with it, if that makes sense. And I don't know if on the rewatch, maybe I like it a bit more, because I watched it like 4 or 5 years ago. I've been to a lot of more festivals since then, and I think you kind of grow accustomed to the sort of pacing of maybe a bit more art house theater, art house cinema. It completely is just like the stone, the like ground layer thing of that. But there's always something like, I don't know, like there's nothing really happening much. Right? He's driving around, but it's not just like that you're glazing an old filmmaker and you're saying like, oh yeah, he's iconic and that's why this is actually like old and should be considered boring and bad. No, something about it is like super intriguing, and it's yeah, it's interesting. It kind of stands out beyond just like, you know, his namesake that he's supposed to be like this great director.
Yeah.
There's really something tangible there.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a part of me wishes I knew I wasn't watching a Tarkovsky movie.
That makes sense.
It just wait, and I guess it's the same when because out of all of Tarantino's movies, I still haven't seen Jackie Brown. It's just one of the ones I never have ever got around to. And I feel like when I'm watching it, my brain's going to be like, I'm watching a Tarantino movie, and this is going to be fucking great. And I feel like part of me doesn't want that when I'm watching some of these movies. So, yeah. But I'm trying to make a challenge to myself to finish off his filmography and not just go ahead and start doing Justin Kurzel's filmography. Because I'd like to... I haven't watched Nitroom, and I'd like to.
Yeah, me neither.
And yeah, before I watch The Order, which comes out sometime later this year or maybe next year. So I've got time, but yeah. I've also got movies I'm going to watch from this year. There's so much to watch, Ewan. Such little time.
Lots of stuff. Well, I'll tell you about some of the movies that are still coming out this year that I worth seeing, because I got to report back from days 2 through 8. I got after this 2 more days at the festival, and then a couple of in the digital library that I'll watch. Again, the full recap comes out, I think, throughout this week as well. I should get that done sooner than later. It's just going to be me monologuing for like an hour or so, maybe even longer. We'll see. And then a full-on recap with Ghent, where we have more reviews and discussions, comes later on, where we talk about a bunch of these films again. But also with Kevin's opinion. But I did have the pleasure to do 4 interviews this year in Zurich, a bit less than I usually did. And I didn't get all the people that I really wanted to talk about. There was an opening for Mikey Madison for Anora, and I didn't get that. I would have loved to have chatted to her. But the ones I got instead are still very exciting. I talked to the director of L'Histoire de Souleymane, the history of Souleymane. I caught this one back in Gun and got to rewatch it here and talk to the director, Boris Leutkin. The film is out now in this French part of Switzerland, and at least in France for sure. And then it will release, I think, early next year here. I think the interview I might even put up sooner than later, because there's already an audience for it that might be interested in hearing from the director. There was also the director, Sophie Derasp. She's part of the feature film competition jury here in Zurich as well, and she had a film, Bergers, Shepards, premiere here in TIFF. It won the Canadian Film Award. I think they just like pick a Canadian film from the selection and say like, here you go. And I was kind of a bit surprised for the lack of like apparently interview interest that there was for this. I didn't see like a lot of other outlets covering this, and to me it's a bit disappointing. Obviously they all want to go for the big names, the stars, like the Jude Laws and Richard Gere's or whoever. Pamela Anderson was a big one that was in Zurich. But there's some really, really great films here that we don't really talk to the directors like directly, for lack of a better term. And again, I got to talk to pretty much all of them for at least 20 minutes. So there's going to be some hefty interviews coming up. We had some great discussions, including one with Adam Elliott. His new film, Memoir of a Snail, comes out next week, and it's out later in the year in here in Switzerland. I think it doesn't come out until December, but it will be out next week in the US and this coming week in Australia. So I think that review will go up soon as well. And then I also talked to Shiori Ito, who is the director and the main subject of the documentary behind Black Box Diaries. That one is out in Switzerland at the end of October, and I think next week or the week after in the States. And I'm gonna talk about this first. I watched this film in preparation of an interview with her, and obviously, if you read the synopsis of what this is about, this is like on the verge of the Me Too movement that really took a big, I guess, push from her side on coming forward about her story in first in book form and now in this documentary. And I watched this documentary, and after having a look over all of the films that I've seen that are under that documentary genre, I could not find a single one that I would say is better than this. And I have a new favorite documentary. I think it was like, maybe you're not going to connect with it as much as I do, but I thought this was incredibly powerful filmmaking, where she makes herself a vulnerable subject just by the nature of, having sexual assault happen to you, but then also coming forward. And it just like represents so much of this cultural zeitgeist around this topic through such a personal lens that never shies away from asking the important questions, but also taking in all of the hurt that it causes to yourself and the ones around you. I had a really insightful conversation with her. That like I gotta say, I can't think back to a moment where I was more nervous to talk to someone, just because it is a really tough subject, especially because you're talking to the director, who's also the one who this happened to me, like one of my biggest champions for the rest of the year. Definitely, if you can seek it out and you can stomach it, I think it opens up with a really great way to give you a sensory or a trigger warning for what's about to come, and it's done with care all throughout. I'm reading through Black Box as well, like the novel that she published back in 2017, and I've been on the train. It brought me to tears in public as well. It's really, really strong all around, and yeah, there's some other films that I caught. Lachlan, I guess a big shout out to Black Box Diaries. It should come out sooner than later, and I might even have a link for you if you're interested too. But there's a Sundance darling, A Real Pain, that is also rolling out, I think next week in the States, and should be coming out over the next couple of weeks. Was an early contender maybe for an Oscar. In the performances for Kieran Culkin specifically, I think it really stands out. But to me, this was another really human story that, has humor in it. It's American, but it doesn't feel big and bloated and like performative in a ways. It's just like, even though the characters in it are very vulnerable with each other, even in the larger group outside of family, it just felt like it felt really poignant, and I was pleasantly surprised that it actually delivers. A Real Pain, great film. Then Memoir of a Snail, we're going to talk about that more. I think it's a bit more of the same from Adam Elliott. The non-issue being that his style is just like, it really, really, really works. And then you just get like, the story of a young woman who's obsessed with snails throughout the misery of her life of being like orphaned and split apart with her brother. You end up laughing, you end up crying, you end up just gasping. There's a lot to be enjoyed about an Adam Elliott film, and Memoir of a Snail is really up there. Then a movie that Kevin and I missed in Venice, The New Year That Never Came, ended up getting the Orizzonti Awards, the Horizons Award there, and it's this Romanian film about the upcoming revolution or the looming threat of the regime in 1989, and it tells the story through a bunch of different characters that kind of somewhat cross paths sometimes, but it's, I wouldn't say episodic, but it like has a wide range of different people in it, and I think it really comes together. It's a bit long, and it's also a slow film, but as a time capsule about like, looking at this time period, I think it's a really solid film. Then Conclave, Kev liked this even more than I did. I think it's so far his favorite film. He liked it more than Anora, by the way. So that's gotta say for something. Yeah, he said he constantly has a smile on his face. He had a smile on his face for most of it, and it's like, the funny thing is, it's like the political intrigue and like the playing and the backstabbing and the plotting is happening throughout this entire movie, and I think it's really fun to see unfold. I plan to read the novel this is based on, but it's the All Quiet on the Western Front director Edward Berger, who has a follow-up here with Conclave. Ralph Fiennes probably gives like one of his best performances in years, although he's never bad, but this is really good. And then We Live in Time, Lachlan, I've been hyping this one up, but I said that like the trailer alone almost made me cry. And then watching the movie and that not happening in the actual movie was a bit disappointing to me. I was supposed to be in tears. Like A24 is giving out tissues 4D screenings, and I just don't think it has that emotional impact. I was quite disappointed by it. I think it's still a solid film. I was just expecting like a year best, and I didn't really get that out of neither Florence Pugh nor Andrew Garfield, or the narrative, because it jumps around in time so much, right? That's kind of the nature of how the trailer was cut, and that's how the movie is as well. I think it just kind of loses a lot of its momentum, unfortunately. But still, I think there's a lot to talk about. I'm definitely going to revisit once we review it here. And then the new one from Steve McQueen. We watched the 4.5 hour long documentary, Occupied City, which I've been informed today is actually coming out on Mubi. But so you can go see that now. Yeah, and this
is that you can pause it and you can come back.
Exactly. And I think the best thing about that was its cinematography kind of still held your interest, even though maybe like the documentary form was to be experienced in chapters and like episodes, not all in one go. And Blitz is kind of that. It's like really impressive technically, like the sound mix, the cinematography, the look of it all is great, but the story itself is like impressively underwhelming. And it's definitely, I'd say, probably his worst film. Although I don't think he's capable of making a bad movie. I think it just is not really great with Saoirse Ronan. It criminally underuses her for the connection that she has with her son. It relies a lot on the kid, and say it all with me. I hate kids. Yeah, and he's not. So there's also like a bunch of child characters that don't often work for me. It's fine. Even like that detracts like maybe half a star from it. But then there's also like some over the top antagonistic characters that pop up later into the film, and you're like, is this Les Miserables? Like it's like, what are we doing here? It's a bit over the top. I said to a colleague that it's funny that Blitz is more of a musical than Joker Folie Deux. And I'm going to stand by that. Like, there's more singing and actual musical parts in Blitz than there are in Joker Folie Deux. And then lastly, you're really interested about this. Joshua Oppenheimer makes his feature film debut with The End. He's known for what is it called? The Sound of Violence, or what the documentary that he made is like really famous. I haven't seen that one yet. I'm very intrigued to go check it out. And this one is, going to be on the letterbox curve like Megalopolis, because there's going to be a lot of people that are giving it 1 star, that are absolutely hating on it. And then there's the occasional like 5 star. I've seen it on the people in Zurich attending. I know someone who gave it a 1 star and someone who gave it a 5 star. And I think you just got to be on its wavelength. It's basically about this family that is in the end times locked into like this huge bunker facility. And it comes from a really privileged place, but doesn't really see their own privilege. But it's not really about those class divisions as much as it is about the lingering guilt that they have to have survived while others haven't, or specifically like maybe the other family members. And then when someone comes into their place and enters their community, it's kind of all turned upside down. This really fragile stability that they've created for themselves. And it's a musical. It's a full-on musical. Full-on, like, every character sings in this and has, like, dancing numbers. And it's just, the issue with what people take with musicals is that they, I think, are so sincere. Because by nature of someone singing out their emotions, I don't think there's much else that is as sincere as that. And you kind of have to take it at face value of what it is presenting. And I think then the tonal imbalance of going back and forth with like pretty good dramatic scenes into singing, I think can undercut it for a lot of people. I think the editing, the framing, the music itself isn't really great. There's some weird choices, but I ended up liking it. I'm surprised by myself, because like you could definitely hate on this easily, and I could not really give you a rebuttal. It's like, yeah, that's just like horrible. Yes, but I liked it. And I have no clue if you'll hate this or you'll like it. I think it's just a coin toss for me. But I don't know if you knew it was a musical. Were you aware that they're going to be a bunch of singing?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll like that.
I mean, I've already seen the worst musical of the year, so...
Yeah, barely a musical. But yeah, I'll have even more thoughts on the smaller titles. We always want to champion those, even the ones that don't really come with the inherent film discussion and people are anticipating it. Maybe make you aware of some smaller titles that are worth checking out as well. But with that, we're at the end of what we've been watching, and we are heading straight into election season with The Apprentice. It's coming up quickly. I think voting closes in the States in less than 3 weeks. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time over in the States. And right on time is the follow-up to Holy Spider by Ali Abbasi, an Iranian filmmaker here, telling the story of Donald J. Trump, who is on the upswing, portrayed by Sebastian Stan, and there's also Jeremy Strong as Roy Khan in the lead role. But yeah, Lachlan, what is The Apprentice about?
A young Donald Trump, eager to make his name as a hungry scion of a wealthy family in 1970s New York, comes under the spell of Roy Cohn, the cutthroat attorney who would help create the Donald Trump we know today. Cohn sees in Trump the perfect protege, someone with raw ambition, a hunger for success, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to win.
Never admit defeat, right? Always fight back. That's his mantra, and something that Sebastian Stan's Trump really takes in. This movie comes in at a runtime of a bit over 2 hours, 123 minutes, has been received pretty warmly on IMDb. I saw that they don't allow ratings yet, because I assume once it would open that up, people who haven't seen it would rate it just on the merit of this being a movie about Donald Trump. But over on Letterboxd, it's not censored, and the ratings are a 3.5, and on Metacritic a 62. So that's like barely like positive. I think there's some people who just generally are of the opinion that this movie acts bite and acts something to actually say. I think with that, it kind of sets out what it needs to do. And we're going to talk about like why I think it mostly succeeds. I caught this back in Gun, and I talked about it, I think, a bit on the show already. I haven't had a chance to rewatch it. The press screening for it at the Zurich Film Festival was literally this morning, and I didn't head there because we are recording today. I don't get to rewatch it, but yeah. I think it stayed in my mind enough, because I don't think it holds like, it's not that deep. It's not like that much of a character study. I think it's pretty simplistic in its approach. And I think for someone as simple as Trump, that kind of makes sense. But I can see where this criticism can come from, where like, obviously you have an affiliation if you're pro-Trump, anti-Trump, or whatever. But even beyond that, if you are anti-Trump and then looking at this, you may want more out of it. And also how early it ends. So we're gonna do a spoiler review for, I guess, the life of Donald Trump. You know, if you know a bit about his biography, there's nothing that is going to be surprising in here. So yeah, I don't know how much of a spoiler warning is even needed. Generally, I'd say that I'd recommend it. I think you would say that too. But yeah, where did you land? Like, general thoughts on The Apprentice?
Yeah, I was having a lot of fun. I honestly didn't like. Okay, so I did like some of the technical things. I liked some of the needle drops. I felt some of them were a little bit too in your face and a little bit too abrupt for maybe the particular mood or feeling that a film was trying to do. And then from a cinematography standpoint, I totally got where they were going with the visual look of everything, making it feel like it was either film or early VHS video, that kind of stuff. The visual look of the at least the lighting wise in some of the later scenes were all in that sort of style. So I feel like from a technical standpoint, I was actually like pleased. Most of it was great. I don't think anything blew me away from a technical standpoint, because the entire time I was super engaged with both Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong with their performances of Trump and Roy. And I didn't think I was going to get engaged with the narrative and then not like feel bad for Trump, but see this weird arc that Trump's on. But I think what engaged me more than anything else was slowly seeing the mannerisms of the Trump that we know today in the public figure start to come out. And I have to just praise Sebastian Stan from, you know, like when you first see him, you're like, okay, yeah, I see the visual look to him, but he's sort of the way he sort of enunciates particular words or sort of puts the inflection in a particular part of the sentence didn't really flow the way that I thought a Trump conversation would. But about 3/4 into this movie, I'm just like, yep, that's a fantastic
You see
Trump
him, right?
impression, and I
Yeah.
see it, and I'm like, that is a fantastic evolution, and I think that it's very subtle changes that happen, and there are very particular like story beats that happen, and how things change in his life, and how he changes as a character, and how certain things go his way and certain things don't go his way, and that's sort of how he changes to become this sort of person we know as he is today. So I really, really enjoyed that, and I also really enjoyed Jeremy Strong's performance as Roy Cohn. I don't know anything about Roy Cohn. I didn't know what he looked like or any of his story, and I had a quick Google search after the film, and the first thing I saw was just a picture of Roy Cohn on a chair, and all I saw was Jeremy Strong, and I feel like he nailed the physical appearance of this character, especially with his eyes, because I was just staring at like Jeremy Strong just giving me a look, and it felt like it was a million words coming at me. But at first I was like, oh, it's just Roy from his last biggest hit,
Succession.
Succession. There it is. I don't know. I was thinking of Substance, and I was like, that's not it. But I had a fantastic time just watching these two back and forth. And there is never really anything to chew on with this movie, and I do and I don't agree with this movie ending so subtly, because people are going to think that this movie is about Donald Trump. It's not. It's about him becoming the Trump that we know. So we don't need to see the next 20 years of him being Trump. We already have him on TV shows and whatnot. But I think the subtle ending of like them writing the out of the deal is a fantastic little way of finishing off the film. And I think that overall the film, it's quite engaging and fun, at least where it goes, because you might not know the full story of how he came to be. And I think the evolution is probably one of the best parts.
I mean, the corruption has taken place, right? The movie isn't interested in the rest of his life, where it's just more of the same, where he's just like continuing that behavior and showcasing that. I think is not the story's intention. It first is like, you could read it as like, okay, is it maybe apologizing or justifying or whatever, reprimanding any of this behavior? It's never framing it as anything other than incredibly despicable. The only thing that I thought was interesting is that, like, towards the end of Roy Cohn's life, you start to, maybe at least for me, like, start to build up that empathy of, you're a despicable person. It's still horrible what he's doing to you. It's not like that he just, like, bad people only deserve bad things to happen to them, because ultimately that is how we create more bad people, is for them to be caught up in a cycle of shit. And, just being in the vicinity of Trump, it seems to be a cyclone of shit, for a hurricane, to be topical on what's going on right now in the States as well. And like you said, the performances, I think, are really where this movie lands, where it doesn't really have much other than going through the expected notions of a story like this to play out, like the corruption, essentially the rise to fall as a person, for him. And what is depressing about it, if it were like a narrative thing, you would have a rise and fall where there would be a comeuppance for your behavior. But instead, we have a president that is ultimately coming out of this, someone who's running again and potentially even be president yet again. And that's just, to me, is like, then I think what Ali Abbasi is interested in just like portraying the easily corruptible nature of this hyper late stage capitalistic system that the States is under, where the one who's the loudest, the one who's able to just make the biggest fuss and never stand down and lie and just take whatever they want, is ultimately the one coming out on top. Now, I don't think the movie is like doing that in a really poignant way of getting there, but Trump is such a perfect, just like, thing, mold to tell that story by, that I was still surprised that a movie called The Apprentice is like 15 years shy of that show even existing, maybe even 20 years. I think it ends in 87, right before The Art of the Deal is published. That's literally like when a movie concludes in the ghostwriting of that book. Maybe he's interested in poking a bunch of jabs and making fun of Trump with this film as well. But I think that when they sent the cease and desist right after Gun, basically to scare local distribution away from picking this movie up for to showcase it in the States, they definitely hadn't seen it yet. And from what I've been told yesterday by someone who had a bit of a inside knowledge, or maybe it was a bit more known, is that when they delivered it when they screened it in Gun, they literally like finished an edit 2 days before. That's why like when we saw it, the sound mix towards the beginning of the movie wasn't completely done yet, and wasn't done like well. And obviously they fixed it up now. And I think since Trump's team has seen it, I don't think it's like much that will, like, it's not like this is relevant for the election. Like, I doubt that anyone who sees this will think differently, because these things have been out there, and especially being in narrative fiction, obviously, well, based on an actual person, but being fiction, I don't think that anyone who's already in support of Trump is going to take this movie at like face value anyways.
I think this film does nothing to make Trump look bad, and does more to make you think, wow, I wonder how many more people are closeted homosexuals, especially in a government body. I think the film does more to show how easily corruptible a government is, at least a government body, or maybe it was. And now we don't really have that. Well, easily persuadable then to have millions of dollars of tax write-off, essentially, not even having to pay taxes towards property. Like how easily that was. And I feel like I never really felt positive or negative towards Trump. And I think that maybe changes in the end, because I feel like one of the big things that they do is the opposite arcs that Roy and Trump go on. Trump starts as this innocent body and becomes this fucking prick of a person. Roy is a prick of a person, but then through his mortality and then his death approaching, he becomes more aware of human behaviors and just becomes more humanistic, I guess, as a character, considering the emotions of other people, which is an interesting one. And I found that quite interesting. But yeah, I never really feel like the film ever is really like Trump bad. It's more like Trump wanted success. Trump found a guy that could give him success. That guy was a bit of a dick, and Trump is now that guy reincarnated, and the city of New York was always really corruptible.
It's like Abbasi's other film, Holy Spider, was was a film that depicted the crimes of a murderer that was killing sex workers, and people kind of not really doing anything about it because they were low-key agreeing with like, oh yeah, they're like scum anyway, so like who cares if they die, right? And what it did there as well was showing you all of these gruesome murders, and one of the big responses was, why do you have us sit through this the horrors of this and showcasing it in its entirety? And I think to me it's like, it makes that like, it doesn't mean that I 100% agree with how he does it here and how he does it in Holy Spider, but to me it like really holds up the mirror to like the society he depicts in his narrative features, without really guiding you in what's right or wrong, because that should be implicit by you having a bit of media literacy and having a fucking decent thought to be had in your head. But with like the growing thing where that is not the case, with a lot of people who are online and who are very much getting radicalized and radicalizing themselves with the research that they do themselves online, it just is then frustrating that even on the opposing side, that should be the more progressive one, we always want the easy thing that like, oh yeah, this is just virtue signaling, and 100% I need to agree with this, otherwise there's something problematic about it. It's like, no, that's where like the art lies, and where we keep thinking as humans is where art is controversial. Not for the sake of just like, glorifying, I don't know, like I feel like there's a more clear take to be like for nudity, for example, for women. And I think The Substance was such an interesting movie to like go over that and have a look at how we see that. And The Apprentice isn't as deep as doesn't hold as much as like The Substance, but it still is in the same vein of not treating you as a fucking idiot who's watching the movie. But you could also go away and take nothing away from the film and just say it's pretty entertaining to see the rise of this despicable character making the ranks, and you're just like, oh yeah, you're a fucking prick. And getting caught up in his own rise and kind of being excited about it. If you do that, then that's like, that's how easily it is to be caught up in like, oh yeah, as long as it keeps going up, that's something that we aspire to as humans, or maybe especially in a capitalistic Western world, and all of that. I think it's interesting, and it's part of this film. Paired that with, I think you said, the cinematography is something that also stands out a bit. The way that it's shot, it's not like it's a huge standout, but like it depicts the time in a way with like I don't know. It feels like it captures the time in a good way. I felt like once we had picked this as our main review, that we don't have that much to say about it, because ultimately it is a very simple film. And I think for me, I don't have much to add to it other than great performance. It's an interesting movie. It's entertaining. Yeah, it's not like groundbreaking or a must see. Like, this is the pinnacle of like a character study on Trump. It's not that at all. I feel like it's more about like something else. A system that lets a person like him thrive more than it is about like him specifically.
I'm excited for The Apprentice too, where they obviously have musical numbers and and Ivana Trump gets to obviously do more of a role because she was on the Baked.
Yeah.
Maria Bakalova did a fantastic job as well, by the way. I think she nailed all the scenes that she was in. She was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think you'd have to go out and make your way to see this movie, but I think it is a decent amount of fun. I just thought it was engaging.
Anything else other than your rating that you got to share?
I'll give you my rating. 3.5 out of 5. It grabbed me by the great performances of Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. That was my Letterboxd review.
Right.
There you go. I quoted it for you.
Yeah, good stuff. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, or I guess a 3.75, because I'm somewhere in between that 7 or 8. It was an 8 when it came out of gun, but then the more I think about it, I think it doesn't have like that much in it. That is like, I think Holy Spider is a better film. It's also my double feature pick. Another film, obviously about a completely different culture, but I think it captures it a bit more. Obviously knowing a bit less about Iran than the States, but it feels like it's getting to a point that is a bit more effective in Holy Spider. Although, again, big trigger warning for that. There's a lot of like violence towards women in that film. But yeah, another gun film that I think was really solid.
My double feature pick is a bit of a weird one, because obviously I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed where this film finishes, and I feel like people are going to have wanted a continuation of the story. So my double feature pick for this is Chris Columbus's Home Alone 2: Lost in New York. Because within that movie, you obviously get to see Trump many years
Trump
later
Tower.
in Trump Tower. And I think that's a fantastic continuation of this character that we see. I don't know, so we don't like it when they do a prequel before, after they do the original. So yeah, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Prequels are going crazy when like the one cameo character from Home Alone 2 gets his own spin-off prequel. It's crazy. But yeah, there's some new releases coming out this week. On October 18th, we are getting the sequel to the horror hit Smile with Smile Smile 2. Then we also got Godrich, starring Michael Keaton and Mila Kunis. That's by Nancy Meyer's daughter. I was wondering why this one is getting a wide release and has a stacked cast. And well, speaking of nepotism with the Trump family, here's one, I guess, with Nancy Mike. But hey, maybe the movie's good, but it just was like, I've never heard of this movie. Why is it getting a wide release? Anyways, out in limited release, so that might be just in the States, just New York and LA and maybe Chicago. I don't know, but it's also playing at a lot of festivals. These three titles, Enora, A Real Pain, and Rumors. And I've seen them, all three of them now. I think quality-wise, I would go Enora and A Real Pain, and quite below that, Rumors, but I think that one is still a really fun comedy. And then we are also getting a unrated cut of Saw in select theaters, as that one is having its anniversary. And I think we're getting a new one in 1 or 2 years. John Kramer is set to return for that one as well. Saw franchise, always a ton of fun if you are up for that. And then out on VOD this week until the 20th. Oh, I guess it will be available even after the 20th, but it will release the time frame until the 20th here, is Alien Romulus out on premium VOD. Then we got Brothers over on Prime. Lee is coming out on VOD, and Woman of the Hour over on Netflix. And then the second season of Shrinking is starting off. I'll have my review for I don't know if I think it will be weekly, but I'll have my review for the whole second season next week. And then in Australia, we're getting Memoir of a Snail. The US release date for that one is October 25th, and in Switzerland it's the 26th of December, but we'll be chatting about that in full-on spoiler fashion next week. I'm sorry for all of the Swiss people listening that I guess have to skip out on the spoiler part of that discussion. But over in Switzerland, we are getting the release of Thelma. Juno Quib, really fun performance from her in an action role. Can't recommend it more. And then Lee is coming out in theaters in the same week that it is coming out on VOD in the States. That one isn't even out yet in this week in Australia. It's coming the next week or the week after on the 24th. And then The Apprentice isn't out in Switzerland yet. It's coming this week, so I guess the Swiss people have to wait even longer to actually get to enjoy our spoiler discussion of the film. But yeah, next week we're going to talk about Memoir of a Snail, and we might even do a bit of Smile 2 if we have the time for that, and we'll catch that film. I don't know yet. I wasn't a fan of the first one, and yeah, for me, I don't know if I'll see it in time for next week's recording, but we'll also catch up with a bunch of movies that we missed. I think that It's What's Inside, a bunch of Netflix stuff that I missed, so I'll have, even though I had a recap from Zurich, I'll have a recap of the last 2 weeks for you coming as well. And then Lachlan will surely continue his his watch of Tarkovsky, and I gotta know what you think of the ending of Solaris. But that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening, for watching. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe if you want to see more content. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Bye.